All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Wednesday, September 16th, otherwise known as Fed Day, otherwise known as Snow Day. We'll talk a little bit about both those things. Let's start with the Fed, of course. Powell spoke, and, it's typically, before I just talk about some of the things that he said, but I'll tell you, as I talked about, and yet, if you watched yesterday's video, the first thing that I talked about was these whipsaw moves, and that we don't always go the direction from when they announce, put out the announcement at 2 o'clock of what their forward guidance is versus in the press conference. So we saw exactly that again today. It's the typical whipsaw where we start one direction, but we don't finish the day in that direction. It's very tricky, these Fed days, and it's easy to get caught up because I'll tell you, when the market starts to rally, they're buying everything in options, right? Every single thing that you could think of, they're buying options like crazy. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, just a lot of chasing all of a after the Fed announcement. And in my opinion, half of this option flow, it's dopey. And then you really have to kind of sit back and try to ignore that, and then basically wait for what's this headline on the tape? Sorry, Moderna and Vertex established new crowd to treat cystic fibrosis. That's interesting. So yeah, I mean it's very tricky, right? And then 2:30, Powell speaks, and he starts to say that basically everything that they released at 2 o'clock, saying that they're not going to go ahead and raise interest rates anytime soon. Super dovish. And then in the Q&A, they're asked about more things like fiscal stimulus, and he said yes, we're probably the market. The economy, not the market, is going to need some type of. Sorry, I'm just copying this and pasting it in the trading room, but. He mentioned that the market is probably the economy is going to need some type of fiscal stimulus, meaning a second round of stimulus, and the market didn't like that and turned south. Now, is that completely did he spook the markets, or is it just that this market is struggling a little bit, holding gains? I think more of the latter. I think that the market is just having some difficulty here, right? And we're in September, right? It's all things that I've been talking about. That September is just a tricky month. We lost momentum about a week and a half ago, right? And since then we've been kind of caught in a range. So. What's the moral of this kind of caught in the range? And we'll go over some levels to watch, and as I said in the pre-market S&P note that I send out, it's today is going to be a make or break day. We were sitting right at that top of value, this 33.90, as well as 33.94, which will come up on the next. But your job here is to try to play, in my opinion, is to try to play as much defense as possible until we get out of this range, right? So 33.92 in chain, right? No, that's right, 33.94. I was just waiting for Thinkorswim to adjust here, but yeah. So we started the day above value, and you kind of just felt like that we were too close to the top of value, and we broke back in. It's almost like a tightrope that price action has been, in terms of on the top of value, broke back in. So I think again, just letting this play out a little bit. Is the best thing, right? I've talked about this before, where I've had, pullbacks in my own personal account in September and October, anywhere between like mid-August to October. Those are the trouble months for me. Because again, I'm mainly a trend trader. I'm a momentum trader. And when we start to chop around in a range and slow down a bit, you got to make some adjustments. And I think that's what this market is doing right now. We're in a choppy market for now. Eventually, we'll get out of it, and it's easier said than done, right? To kind of maintain that. Um, you know, it's tricky too because it looked like we had the chance, right? I said today was going to be make or break, but we had the chance to kind of resolve ourselves higher here. So, who knows? And I could tell you, when we look at the performance, which I'll bring up again in a second, and we'll go over the Qs, which underperformed for the day. That's a nasty looking candle for the day, and a sink into a little bit deeper into value here. So. 80% rule is in effect right now, so we could see a move all the way down to 270.39. So be mindful of that the next couple days, and be careful how you position. Once this market kind of reveals itself, right? It's okay, to be wrong, while we're kind of following the trend and while price is above. But if things change a bit, then you gotta pare back a little bit. And let this market do what it wants to do. Remember, the last couple days, we've seen these sell programs come in at the end of the day. So this market, I don't think it's just Powell. I think this market is just having a difficult time holding on to gains. There's people who, for whatever reason, are selling right now and rotate. We talked about this mechanism of rotation too, where, clearly the energy names and financials were outperforming. And I think part of that is also that we have this big index rebalance on Friday, right? You don't hear a lot of people talk about that because I don't think they fully understand it, right? All of the S&P indices are rebalancing on Friday. So mainly what that means is some of the winners have to get sold and some of the underperformers have to get bought, right? In the market cap indices, it's not that big of an effect, but in the equally weighted indices, it does have some effect. And I've talked about that too in a couple videos this week. So, these things, when you kind of put together the pieces of the puzzle, it does make sense a little bit, and these quadruple witching weeks can be a little bit difficult, right? If that's the trade that's going on. So, let's just go over the performance. And then I didn't talk about IWM, but that was the pure standout today. We did take out this VPOC up here on the 1 hour and kind of reverted back. So, the market web's, giving a great roadmap again of, how to kind of position a little bit and where to take some profits. I was not long the small caps today, so I didn't have that issue, but we did take out that 1 hour VPOC. And again, they finished up 1%. So again, it feels like there's still a bit of rotation. And if we look at some of these charts, right, if you look at IWD versus IWF, right, large cap value versus large cap growth, right, value is continuing to kind of make a move here. It's consolidated a couple days, but it's been outperforming, right? And this is just a 3-day chart, right? You could see all day long value was outperforming growth. Right? If you want to break this apart and look at this small caps as well, the other one that I always show in here is IWN and IWO. That one has been going sideways for a bit. There hasn't been much of a difference in the small caps, but the difference, they did outperform because you could see this move to the right where small cap value did outperform growth, but not as much as the large cap chart that I just showed. Also, if you want to look at IWM versus the Qs, you could see what's going on there too. IWM versus the Qs. Yeah, you could see that's it's rallying off the lows. It's a little bit of a reversion to the mean, right? I wouldn't say this is a crazy looking outperformance, but you could look at it just very. I guess that's not doing what I wanted it to do. Let's try that again. No, it doesn't want to show the 3-day for that. But nevertheless, I think you could see what I'm getting at here is that the small caps are and have been performing for all of September. So again, tricky September. If you could find some trades, that's basically what I'm trying to do for the trading room, is to basically find some trades, where you can day trade a little bit, but it's tough to not get caught. Like if you have some swing trades on, it's tough to be perfect in the swing trades, right? I'll have, typically, I'll have a couple swing trades that work, in this market, and a couple swing trades that don't work. And that's typically, how it works. And then I play a little bit of defense when I see that the market is dumping. I got out of some toll that I put on, even though I think toll looks good. It's just not worth it. I think it's just too difficult, right? PayPal, I lost some money on PayPal this morning. That was my first trade. Followed some strength. I love to buy PayPal on dips, but it reversed. And I did stop myself out, which I think was a good move, because if you look at where this thing closed, it closed on the absolute lows, right? And once this thing broke value, I gave it a chance to hold 185 for a minute, and I'm like, forget it. So the issue with PayPal is on the daily chart. You got this VPOC that it's approaching, and I think once this takes this out, it may provide a little bit of relief. All right, so that was my first bad trade. This R, I did so someone asked me, they said, why'd you force a target in this rider trade? Well, because this market is too iffy, and I wanted to, when everything was rallying before the press conference started, I said, hey, I'm going to take a target in this thing, and I hit one at 44. My first target was, I think, 44.50, and I just moved that in. Right, so this was at 220 right before, target ahead of Powell. So I tried, right? I did this too at, I could not get the target that I wanted on Honeywell, which, the market makers just would not budge, right? And sometimes, like, you got to hit the bid, which is what I did there, because you could sit there like mid-market, or, have the market inch up to your limit price, and they're not going to take it. So it's very frustrating when that happens. The market makers almost know that a turn is coming. Well, I shouldn't say that, but they're not giving you. It's just very difficult to trade options. I'll just leave it that on these types of days. And in general too, with options, I will tell you, I will share a secret with you guys, which I did. I did this in the room as well. When the market is trending, almost all option activity works, right? On the call side, right? You see calls on this, calls on that. Oh, what a great signal. When the market starts to chop, there will still be some order flow. Like we saw big puts being bought in First Solar. But it's really difficult to know which one is going to work. Right? Look at First Solar. They announced a secondary offering. But here was the order in First Solar that we saw. Big put order, October 67.5 puts, 600,000 notional. So when I saw this thing go up, I was like, wow, that's a really unusual trade that went up midday. So somebody knew something there. 67.5 puts, even though it hasn't gone down that much, they should make some money on that. But I'll tell you, it's really difficult when the market starts to chop. Option flow is going to be like 50-50, right? When it trends, when the market is trending, the option flow works. But when it is chopping around, when the market is choppy, it's some option trades are going to work, some don't, right? And I have a lot of traders who are posting and they like option flow and so forth. But some of it works, some of it doesn't, right? I have somebody was posting, talking about next week's calls and Facebook and Shopify. Well, those are majorly underwater from yesterday. So just take the stuff just make sure that you're understanding, I would say, if you're following option flow, because I think, again, I tend to go over this a lot in these videos, but just be careful, because you get people who are only tweeting out winners on Twitter, and it looks like, oh geez, wow, these option trades, they really work. They don't in a choppy. It's much harder to get them to work in a choppy market, just as normal trading. So but that kind of goes in line too with when this market is choppy. Overall, whether you're following option activity on the tape or not, if you're just trading options, it's very difficult to make to squeak out profits if you're trading multiple swing trades or day trades on in options. So just bear that in mind, right? I always talk about how that there's different tools in the toolbox that you can use of trading, right? I try to trade more stock in these environments because I can get in and out of stock. Like even though PayPal went down, if I would have bought calls in PayPal, it would have been a disaster for me, right? This trade in Toll Brothers, right? I would have lost money on Toll Brothers had I bought calls, right? But I was able to escape out of this, for basically a scratch. So it's a big difference. I did trade a little bit of some. I mean, I haven't traded energy in a long, long time. The only way I will trade energy stocks is for a day trade. We saw some FANG that went up, which is not the acronym for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Is actually this energy stock. But I tell you, I can't stay in this for more than a scalp. And it did move through value, right? And that's what I was looking for. Exxon also saw some calls. 1 hour. I think this is hitting resistance someplace. I saw. Maybe it got into value, but big day, right? Up 4%. So again, I have to think that this is due a little bit to the index rebalance. Maybe crude helped. Crude did rally, so maybe it's not all the index rebalance. That's the move in crude. Like I said, there was some big Wells Fargo calls. I'm not. I'll tell you. I try to give you my philosophy. Yes, maybe this can rally up to this VPOC up here at 27, and maybe the banks are so under-owned and under-loved, but it's very difficult for me to get involved in some of these things. I really have to have my own conviction rather than what we're seeing in terms of call activity. BAC also saw some repeat calls in it today too, but that's inside value. So that's what we're seeing on the tape. What else did I do for the day? Yeah, I traded some Oxy. Again, got out of these really quick. And that's it. We played a little bit of, this was one of the members brought this to my attention, that Herman Miller, MLHR, was reporting after the close today. I know a lot of people who have been buying their chairs for working at home. So this one worked pretty well. This thing got up to $30. Very nice trade that some participated in the trading room today. All right, guys, so that is it. So I think, I would love to come up and say, what I normally do is, look for trades that are breaking out. Again, a couple of the trades worked today. A couple of the day trades, like the PayPal. Again, I always go over the losers. I never sugarcoat things in these videos and say, oh, wow, these things exploded higher, right? I never do that BS. It is what it is, right? You guys know all that stuff. When you hear that stuff on TV about calls exploding higher, it's all bullshit, right? So what else? I think we'll continue to kind of look for trades like short-term swings, some day trades in the room. But I think overall you just have to kind of get through. We're more than halfway through September. Let this work its way through. I don't think I mentioned this yet. That I still think this kind of looks like what we experienced back in June, right? Remember in June, we got ahead of ourselves, came in, we bounced, and then the bounce lost some steam. And we managed to kind of go sideways to down for about a week and a half. So let this play out. Don't get overexposed in a choppy market, and you can live to fight another day, and you can really capitalize this, hopefully, for the rest of the year. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.